Welcome to another deep dive. This time we're tackling something I think a lot of us are curious about. The history of physical education, or PE, as most people probably remember it from school.
Yeah.
And we really want to kind of get into how it's evolved,
Mhm.
from just like basic physical training to this much broader idea of like health and well-being.
Right.
And the source that we're using is a 2024 academic text called Physical Education and Well-Being.
Okay.
We're looking specifically at Chapter 7, which is called History of the Physical Dimension.
Sounds fascinating.
Yeah, so get ready. We're going to uncover some ancient Greek wisdom, the church's surprising influence,
Mm-hmm.
and even this newer concept called physical literacy. That's causing quite a stir in the field.
Right. Oh, yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah. So to kick things off, let's go all the way back to the ancients. You think about the Spartans,
Hmm.
and as you might expect, they were super into state-regulated PE.
Right?
Both men and women had to participate.
Mm.
And kind of similar activities. But it's really the Athenians who kind of stand out. They were the first to link physical activity not just to physical health, like we might immediately think of, but also to intellectual, emotional, social, even spiritual well-being. They called this the HPE ideal, which stands for Health and Physical Education.
I mean, that's pretty remarkable to think that all those centuries ago,
Yeah,
they already had this idea that all these different dimensions of a person, like they're not really separate.
right.
They're all interwoven and influencing each other, like contributing to this overall quality of life and this idea of a healthy mind and a healthy body. It really laid the groundwork for this holistic approach to well-being that we're still grappling with today.
And it's interesting if you contrast that to the Romans, they also saw value in exercise, but they seemed to prefer milder forms of it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they were the ones who invented like the power walking trend.
Right, maybe they were just, ahead of their time with this kind of gentle approach to fitness.
Yeah. Now, as we move through history, you see this kind of tension, this kind of tug of war between two big ideas. Seeing the body as basically just like an object,
Right.
something to be trained and controlled,
Mm-hmm.
versus seeing it as part of a whole person with a mind, a spirit, and, a connection to overall well-being.
That tension really seems to be at the heart of how physical education has developed.
Absolutely.
And it kind of pops up again and again
Mhm.
in different periods,
Yeah.
shaping everything from, how we approach education to
Mhm.
how we even view our own bodies.
And you can't talk about this period without mentioning the Catholic Church. During the Middle Ages, they had a pretty big impact on how people thought about physical activity
Yeah, for sure.
and their stance on PE. It wasn't always like super consistent,
Right.
but you had some figures like St. Thomas Aquinas
Mm-hmm.
who actually saw a link between physical activity and spirituality.
Yeah, and it's important to remember that, back then, the church was incredibly influential, in medieval European society.
Mm.
It wasn't just like a religious institution.
Mm.
They shaped people's entire worldview,
Yeah.
how they understood their place in the world, their bodies, everything.
Yeah,
So their perspective on physical activity really mattered.
big time.
Yeah.
Okay, so then fast forward a bit. And in 1679, this guy named Borelli comes along and describes the body as a machine.
Oh, wow.
And that metaphor, it kind of stuck with us, but it
Mm.
also makes you wonder,
Okay.
does that capture the full picture, the full complexity of human experience?
It's interesting, right? It was very much a product of its time.
Yes.
This is the scientific revolution and
Yeah.
trying to understand the human form through mechanics and stuff.
Hmm.
It was a major step forward in some ways. But it also might have inadvertently narrowed our perspective,
Right.
We maybe started to overlook this really nuanced interplay between the physical and the mental and the emotional. That all comes together to make up well-being.
Right. And it's cool to see how different people throughout history kind of push back against that limited view.
Yeah.
So in the late 1300s, you have Vittorino da Feltre. He was an Italian educator
Okay.
who was really into this holistic approach to PE.
Yeah.
And he even incorporated it into the school curriculum.
Wow.
His goal was to develop this ideal citizen,
Uh-huh.
someone who's well-rounded,
Oh, I like that.
in body, mind, and spirit.
It's clear he understood that education can't just be about stuffing information into people's heads. It's
Right.
got to include the physical.
Yeah.
It's about shaping character
Yeah.
and preparing people to actually participate in society.
Yeah.
He was way ahead of his time in seeing that connection between physical and mental well-being.
Then, in the late 1700s, we have Johann Gutsmuth from Germany, and he played a key role in actually professionalizing the field of PE.
Interesting.
He was working at this place called the Schnepf-Fenthal Educational Institute, and he had this structured syllabus,
Okay.
and he really emphasized teacher training, and that helped establish PE as like a real discipline.
So he kind of saw that for PE to really be effective and to stick around,
Right.
it couldn't just be like these informal practices. It needed to be more systematic.
Yeah.
Like we need clear learning objectives,
Yeah.
standardized teaching methods. This is how you make it into a real profession.
And then around the early 1800s, we meet Perling, who was from Sweden.
Oh, I know, Ling.
He was a huge advocate for the medical benefits of exercise.
Right.
And he was connecting physical activity to actual, scientific research
Right.
and to different aspects of health.
Yeah, his work was groundbreaking. He was one of the first to really understand that physical activity could actually prevent and even treat some medical conditions.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about strength or endurance. It was about like actual health.
Right.
And by connecting it to science and medicine, he basically made PE more legitimate. It wasn't just like playing around anymore.
It was serious business.
Right.
So we've seen these individuals who really helped shape PE.
Yeah.
Right.
Some real pioneers.
But then in the late 1800s, things start to change a bit. Because that's when you start seeing organizations popping up. So you have groups like Shape America,
Okay.
which was formerly AAPEER, if you can believe that mouthful.
Yeah.
And they were all about, representing PE professionals.
Right.
And then in 1958,
Okay.
the International Council for Health, Physical Education, Recreation, Sport, and Dance was founded.
Wow, another mouthful.
I know, right?
Yeah.
ICHPEER-SD for short.
Okay.
And they wanted to promote a more global, collaborative, and holistic approach to the field.
It's like this is when PE starts to become a real recognized profession.
Right.
Like shared goals, standards.
Right.
These organizations, they gave people a place to connect, swap ideas, and they could start advocating for PE on a bigger scale.
And it's interesting how these organizations also influence the way PE was thought about.
Yeah.
So in 1970, ACHPRE in Australia actually added health to their name.
Oh, interesting.
It wasn't just about physical skills anymore.
Yeah.
It was about well-being in general.
Yeah, they were definitely pushing for a more
Yeah.
like inclusive and multidimensional idea of health.
Right.
And, recognizing how physical, mental, social, emotional well-being all kind of tied together.
Yeah, but it wasn't all easy.
Right.
A lot of these traditional organizations started struggling financially,
Right.
which is why you see new groups forming, like IHPES in 2019, who are trying to, reinvigorate things. But it does show the challenges, right? Like PE trying to adapt to changing times.
Yeah, it makes you think about how PE needs to stay relevant,
Right.
Like society changes, priorities change, so
Right.
PE has to adapt its approach,
Yeah.
the curriculum, how it talks about itself.
Yeah. Okay, now for the big one. Physical literacy.
Oh, yeah. Physical literacy, or PL for short.
It's been generating a lot of buzz, hasn't it?
Yeah, some people even want to replace PE or HPE with it.
So what exactly does it mean? Is it just a rebranding?
Right.
Or is there something actually new here?
That's the million-dollar question. Well, at its core, it's all about developing these fundamental movement skills,
Okay.
but also the knowledge, the attitudes, the motivation that
Right.
people need to, be confident and competent movers throughout their lives.
So it's more than just being able to,
Right.
run, jump, throw a ball.
Exactly.
It's about.
It's about having the confidence,
Yeah.
the motivation to actually engage in different activities, adapt to new challenges throughout life.
Right, like a lifelong love of movement.
Exactly.
But there's some debate, right?
Of course.
Some say it's too narrow,
Right.
that it's focusing too much on just the physical side,
Right.
while others think it's a good way to, clarify the purpose of PE.
Yeah, I mean, some people worry that we're losing sight of the bigger picture,
Right.
the whole well-being thing, right? But others are like, no, by defining this physical domain really clearly,
Yeah.
we're actually giving it a strong foundation.
It's almost like we're trying to figure out, is physical literacy a complete blueprint,
Right.
or is it one piece of a bigger puzzle?
Yeah, good way to put it. And it might not be so simple,
Right.
Like, maybe it's a foundation
Yeah.
for physical competence.
Yeah.
And then other stuff like education, health promotion,
Right.
they fill in the rest of the picture.
I think the UK is an interesting example here.
Oh, yeah.
They still use physical education in their national curriculum,
Okay.
but they seem to have incorporated some of these physical literacy ideas.
Interesting.
It's like they're trying to find a middle ground.
Right. Like taking the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're definitely acknowledging that fundamental movement skills are important, but they're also not ditching the bigger goals of PE,
Right.
like health, personal development, social responsibility.
It's like they're making a hybrid model.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got this evolving history of PE, debates about what to even call it.
Right.
And now we've got to add in the impact of what are called megatrends.
Yes, megatrends.
So what are they?
They're these big, long-term shifts
Okay.
happening in demographics, technology, economics, social values.
Right.
They're basically reshaping the world around us.
And they affect PE.
Big time. They change how we think about education, health, well-being.
Give me some examples. What kind of megatrends are we talking about?
Well, think about increasing urbanization,
Okay.
the rise of automation, artificial intelligence,
Right.
growing health disparities, an aging population.
That's like we need to figure out how to promote physical activity in a world that's becoming more complex and tech-driven.
Exactly. We need a new way of thinking.
Yeah.
It's not just about traditional sports and fitness anymore.
Right.
We need to find new approaches,
Yeah.
inclusive ones, to meet the needs of all sorts of people.
It's not just about playing basketball or running a mile.
No, it's got to be bigger than that.
Right. We're basically preparing kids for a world where physical activity might look completely different.
Right. We got to teach them to be adaptable, creative,
Yeah.
and to really just love movement no matter what form it takes.
That sounds like a tall order.
It is.
Yeah.
So how do we do it? Well, one promising approach is to adopt a strength-based perspective.
Strengths-based. Okay.
So instead of just focusing on problems,
Yeah.
you focus on what people are already good at, what resources they have.
So work with what you got.
Exactly. Everyone has strengths.
Yeah.
And we can use those strengths to promote health and well-being.
I like that.
It's about empowerment
Right.
instead of just telling people what to do.
It's more collaborative,
Right,
more
yeah.
optimistic.
Yeah.
And within this strengths-based approach, there's this model
Okay.
called Antonovsky's salutogenic model.
Salutogenic.
It's a mouthful, right?
Yeah. Tell me more.
So basically, it focuses on promoting health
Okay.
rather than preventing illness.
Interesting.
So not just avoiding disease, but actually like
Yeah.
cultivating well-being.
Yeah, it's about looking at the factors that make people thrive,
Right.
not just what makes them sick.
Powerful stuff. How does this connect to PE?
Well, it sees people as active agents in their own health. You know, it emphasizes personal agency, resilience,
Okay.
and a sense of coherence.
My sense of what?
Coherence. It means feeling like your life makes sense and that you can handle things.
Gotcha. And PE can help with this.
Absolutely. It's not just about the physical skills anymore. It's about giving people the tools to make healthy choices, to navigate a complex world.
So it can be a catalyst for growth.
Exactly. And that leads us to a really important question. What does this mean for the future of PE? What should it look like? We'll explore that next.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground, haven't we?
Yeah, we really have.
From ancient Greece to physical literacy to these mega trends.
It's a lot to take in.
But PE has come a long way.
It really has.
It's definitely got this rich and complex history. But now I want to look forward. What about the future?
Yeah, that's the exciting part, right? Where do we go from here?
Exactly. So for our listener,
Yeah.
what are some key takeaways you think they should really keep in mind?
Okay, well, first, I think it's important to remember that PE isn't static.
Right.
It's always evolving.
To adapt, right, over time.
Exactly. It's always responding to societal needs, to new scientific discoveries.
Like we started with just physical training, and now it's all about this holistic view of well-being.
Right. PE has always redefined itself to meet the challenges of the time.
And then we have things like physical literacy coming in,
Right.
which, brings both opportunities and challenges.
Really
Really makes us think,
Yeah.
what are our goals? How do we promote physical activity and well-being in new ways?
It's a catalyst for innovation, I think.
Yeah, I like that.
It's pushing the field forward.
And then, of course, we can't forget about these bigger trends
Trends, yeah.
that are impacting, everything.
Right. Education, health, everything.
So PE has to adapt to that, too.
It does. Think about things like healthcare costs, social inclusion, technology.
Right, right.
PE can play a role in all of that.
It can contribute to a healthier society.
It can. The future of PE, it's not just about gym class anymore.
Yeah, it's bigger.
It's about empowering people
Yeah.
to live healthy, meaningful lives.
In a world that's, constantly changing.
Exactly.
So where do we go from here? What can our listener do to, be a part of this future?
Well, you've heard a lot today
Yeah.
about how PE has evolved, the debates, the challenges.
Right.
Now it's your turn to get involved.
Yeah.
What resonated with you?
Yeah.
What surprised you? What inspired you?
What role do you see PE playing in your life?
Exactly. Do you like this idea of physical literacy?
Yeah.
Do you see potential in these strengths-based approaches?
It's time to think critically.
It is.
Yeah.
And to share your knowledge, to start conversations.
Advocate for change.
Yeah. The future of PE is in our hands.
Let's create a world where everyone can experience the joy of movement.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
That's our deep dive into the history of physical education. We hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep moving.